And there's the flag. Can you see my flag?
Can see it.
There you go. Okay. So we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
I pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So Tucker,
Yes.
you're back from your trip.
Oh, boy. And I missed several other because of, I don't know. I just didn't connect up with you guys. It's
Where'd
just
you
like,
go?
we someday we got to meet together, you know? and
Yeah,
it's-
well, maybe.
When's that possible?
Well, I'd hate to be down at the town hall and not have a quorum, you know what I mean? And go down there and waste a lot of time traveling back and forth. But yeah, that's on our radar. I don't know what really is the best time. Is there any pressure to resume in-person meetings? I mean, I just
No
want to make sure
pressure
we're
at
not.
all. No, nobody has said no.
No, okay. All right.
Well, I mean, as far as the government restrict, what? I don't understand the pressure. What do you mean?
No, I was just wondering, maybe somebody from the town government might be saying, hey, you guys really ought to get together in
Oh, I
person. I didn't want to, I just want to make sure we weren't creating any issues by not having an in-person meeting.
I get it. All right.
Okay, so Dan, you're on, and why don't we skip to old business energy efficiency projects and the CHP unit at the pool? Oh, that's two Dans. We got a pair of Dans. So now we are official.
Mhm.
Dan Newsom just joined. Hello, Dan. Dan, how you doing?
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, then let's back up as long as you're there. I didn't see you sneak in. So let's look at the previous minutes and dispense with those. I presume everybody has read them. And if there are any comments, you'll bring them forward. Are there any?
I did not have any.
Nope, not I.
And Dan Newsom, did you read and
Um,
comment? No,
I have no comment,
no
no.
comments. Wait a second. Yeah. Oh, and Chris Smith, did you? Chris
I
Smith,
moved.
did you already answer?
No, I started by saying I didn't have any.
Oh, okay,
I didn't
okay.
have any
All right,
others.
well, I did look at them, and I think that they're fine the way they're written, so I'd like to entertain a motion to accept them as written by somebody. By Chris, seconded by Tucker?
Yep.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. Okay, good. Next item on the agenda is communications. I did receive some external communications, which I'd like to discuss right now. I received an email from Karen Schnitzer. That's SCHNITZER. And Karen, I think maybe Dan. What happened to Dan?
I'm here.
You're the biggest guy on my screen. Did you met with her last year, I think, right?
Not that I remember.
Okay, well, anyway, she's inviting us, has already extended an invitation to be part of the second annual sustainability fair. You might remember the first annual sustainability fair. I thought you had something to do with that, Dan Newsom.
Yeah, I did go.
But anyway, it will be held on Saturday, October 8th from 10 to 2 on the green at the First Congregational Church. She thinks it's an excellent opportunity to talk with the folks in town about our benchmarking work, solar energy projects that we've accomplished so far, updating the schools and other things. So she'd like to know if we would be interested in attending so that she can hold a space for us. So what do you think, Dan, since you went last year? Is it a worthwhile event?
It's pretty low key. There was like a small
Turnout.
stream of people walking through. I did talk to at least a half a dozen, probably more, about energy efficiency So if people want to go and kind of push that, it might be a good place for it, but it's not nowhere near the crowd of the fall festival.
Yeah, so it's like a mini fall festival. But its focus is on sustainability, and that is one of our focuses as well. So Chris, do you have any ideas on that?
The one idea I have is I was going to put it in my calendar and I have a wedding that day. So if I can make it, I can probably only go for the first little bit, maybe right at 10.
How about Tucker? Got any interest in attending a sustainability fair?
I think I would probably disrupt it. So I don't think I should go.
Okay. I understand. All right, so I'll tell you what, I'll respond to Karen by telling her that we discussed it, that we have other priorities. So don't go out of your way to reserve a space for us, but I might stop in. Dan, you might stop in. I don't know, but I don't think we need to have or can't have a formal representation because we don't have enough people to man or table the booth. Okay. The second communication is from Dan Labowski, Labowsky. He is a den leader for the Arrow of Light den at the Cub Scout Pack 114 out of Highland School. Remember last year, we were approached by, I don't know if it was his predecessor, but another den leader of Arrow of Light. They wanted to attend an Energy Commission meeting to learn more about energy and how it's used in town, where it comes from, various sources of energy. And we talked with them about solar projects that we were doing in town and how we track our energy consumption. He says that they got something out of the discussions that we had. It's so that they can get their merit badge, some kind of a merit badge having to do with energy. So I will invite them to participate. Now they'll Zoom in, and the pack, the den itself will probably all be on one call. The next meeting, which would be the October meeting. And do you know when that is? It's the last Monday in October. And I'll invite them and we'll see what they say. If they can make it, fine. If they can't, then they'll let us know. The last meeting in November is not going to be good for me. And then we don't have one in December. So I don't know how quickly they need to get this merit badge, but I'm going to offer an invite for the last meeting, the next meeting, which is the last Monday in October.
If I can offer something.
Yeah.
So I would be interested in going to their PAC meeting as an energy representative and discussing energy with them. So rather than the Zoom meeting, which seems to be distant at best, I'd be willing to do such a thing. So that would probably meet with their specifications on the merit badge qualifications.
Now, let me offer the choices to them and see which one they like.
Yeah.
When would you be available?
It usually ends up being in the evening, so my evenings are pretty much open. So let's find out when they'd like to have a presentation, and I'd show up. I've been active in Scouts for some time, up until about 2002, when my last boy got Eagle Scout out of 51. So I can appreciate their struggle.
Yeah, okay, so let me, I'll offer the option of Zooming or,
The last Monday in October is October 31st, which is Halloween. I don't know if it's still a big deal, but do we want to have the meeting October 24th?
yeah, we should, we didn't take that into consideration when we set up the meeting dates.
Well, Probably
I'm gonna
not.
be
'cause,
taking pictures with my little boy on the 31st, so I leave it to you, but if it's the 31st.
No, we shouldn't do it on the 31st. It's too
Yeah, I
scary,
don't-
too scary.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so let's, the 31st minus 7, the 24th.
Yes, 24th is the Monday prior.
Let me check. Yeah, I think we should do that, even if we didn't set that up initially. And I don't know if you have to notice that somehow so that the public
Yeah.
knows. Yeah, okay.
It'll really disrupt that wave of public comment that we get every meeting.
Do we have to make a motion to do that, or
Yeah,
No,
why
just
don't you make
follow
a
special
motion?
meeting, I think.
I'll make a motion to move it a week up.
Okay. Motion by Dan K, seconded by
I'll second.
Tucker. Any further discussion on that? Is that, I mean, a week's not gonna make or break anything. Okay, okay, so all in favor of doing that? Aye,
Aye.
aye, okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Tucker, I'll let you know what he says. I'll send out an email probably tomorrow,
No, good.
and but you'll have 4 weeks to prepare something, or probably pretty much the entire month of October.
And who knows, they might want to do both.
You might,
Maybe.
they may want to do both, yeah. They may like because the Zoom meetings are, well, I don't know what kind of technology they have, but I could see all of them. I'm sure that they could see all of us. So, and you get an up close look at Dan Newton, which is
Oh, yeah.
priceless.
Oh, let's see, what is this?
Okay. All right, so let's move along. Dan Bombaro, can you comment on the CHP unit at Cheshire Community Pool? The operating rate, according to Dave Gavin, appears to have improved significantly. Is there a reason for that?
I think we've discussed this at a previous meeting. It has normalized, if you want to call it anything, back to the rates where we had expected it to run. This is assumed to have to do with where we assumed the issue to be, which was when the main boilers were not running. We were experiencing some issues with those units when it runs on the secondary boiler system. Something to do with communication with the CHP was preventing them from running. Everything's back up online and running, and we're again seeing normal operating of the CHP unit.
Is there any danger that it would go back to the way it was?
We're going to have to kind of coordinate some with Aegis to see if there is a remedy outside of any serious rework with the way that the unit is plumbed into the system, to assure that, that doesn't happen again. I think in hindsight, right now and in the past 2 years, we've been experiencing extreme lead time issues with anything related to these high efficiency boilers. Last 2 times that we experienced problems, it was supply chain issue and getting parts to fix what shouldn't be a long-term issue. So in the worst case scenario, if the unit goes down, the hope is that supply chains will normalize one day, and this wouldn't be as problematic as it's proven to be in the past.
Did you end up meeting with John Golick?
John and I still haven't connected. We've been emailing back and forth trying to connect. At this point, again, it's going to be to bring him a little bit more up to speed with the operation.
I see this being a 2-part issue, though. 1, getting it operating correctly, but 2, and maybe even more importantly, knowing when it's not operating correctly.
Correct.
Someone
Yeah.
around nerd on this thing. Who is in charge then of this unit?
Sheila, I guess.
You.
No, I know you answered the question. Dan Bombaro was supposed to kind of get together with John.
Yeah, so
Golick and
the
Sheila.
unit is just like any other piece of equipment that runs at the pool. It foremost isn't supposed to go down. It has run with the pool, so they do have a maintainer that is at the facility that might more readily notice than Sheila. However, Aegis Energy, the firm that both pitched to the town the project, I think ultimately, and is in charge of maintaining it and remotely monitoring, has at best to say fallen short of their expectation.
Yeah. According to the statistics that Dave Gavin sent to me, it ran at 97% in the month of July, but then only 93% in August. So there was a slippage. I don't know if there's a good reason.
I don't
for it.
know, 93 to 95%. I don't necessarily know that that's a slippage as much. I mean, we were operating at half of what we would have expected it to, even lower than that at times. So 95 to 97% is well within the range that you would expect for the unit. That's pretty optimal.
Why doesn't it run 100% of the time?
There are downtimes. Anytime that there's not a demand for the energy for the heat, it's not going to be running.
Okay, all right. Well, we've got to keep an eye on that. We'll probably take it off of the agenda for the next meeting and then maybe look at it again a few months from now, especially during the wintertime, because that's obviously there should be a demand for heating in the wintertime. So if it's
Right.
not running in the wintertime, there's something wrong. Okay, David also says that the concession stand at the park, Bartland Park, appears to have the gas consumption has gone from 3,240 CCF to only 800 CCF. From
That must be a misread on Dave's part. There is no gas service. What has been contested by Dave in the past has been the electrical, and
Oh.
he must be noting the KWH.
I see. And then the K, well, then the first number I threw out there was basically the month of February. And then the second one was the month of mid-August to mid-September. So obviously there's some seasonal differences there. I don't know if that would make sense that they would use more electricity. I don't know who's using the electricity anyway, but more electricity is being used in the wintertime than in the summertime.
Again, we had said that the grounds folks were going to take a look at it. I'll reconvene with them. However, I know the wall packs and the lighting are on for security purposes outside the building. The usage of those I'm not certain of. And there's the off chance that there is maybe an electric space heater that picks up to keep the hood and the fire suppression from freezing, which is pretty critical to not having an issue in the fall when it thaws out.
Okay. I'm just noticing here in this note from Dave that maybe I should have mentioned it as part of the communications discussion, but he and I both got a message from Tim White. Tim is interested in seeing if geothermal is viable at the pool. And Dave says he's going to look into it. So, I mean, ground source heat pump, right? Geothermal.
I think geothermal is going to be something that probably takes off a little exponentially pretty soon. I think there was some things included in the federal bill last month, and I think the state of Connecticut is also looking at it too. They just updated some regulations on drilling and things like that. So, that could be something that's kind of the next, the next step in some energy efficiency and green energy stuff. Others probably would know more than I, but at least on the political side of the equation, that seems to be getting some more attention.
Okay, good. Thanks for the input. Okay, next item, you're up again, is the benchmarking.
Yes, I have. So this has been a bit of a struggle to get some info. However, just this afternoon, I did get some feedback from Mr. Clevet, which I actively was reviewing while we were doing our intros. So I just opened it a few minutes ago. It came in today after lunch. So it looks like I have 2 of the 3 properties that I have to review for the usage. I have the Norton and Doolittle. On the bus depot, those were apparently replaced by DATCO, and I'm just reading from the email I got that I have to just dive into a little bit more. But as a condition of their service contract 2 years ago, that included disconnecting the existing service meter, and that's why there hasn't been any data since then. So what I'm understanding, and I have to do just a little bit of follow-up on that one property, is there might be some invoices that I can grab to upload by hand in a little bit more pain in the neck way. But I should have that soon. I do have the last 2 years of data. I'm looking at it now for Norton and Doolittle, so those should be in this. I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'll get them in this week. And then I think that brings us to, with the exception of the bus info, which I got to get from Greg Gibbons, who was copied on this email. I'll try to track that down. I think we should be pretty close to up to date. Have not talked to Amy Thompson, but from what I understand on the silver status stuff, I think we had missed a boat on that even before we dove into this over the summer. So that's looking like a next year thing. But I think the goal is to get this all up to date. And Dan Bombero, anything I'm missing or anything new since utilization I need to upload?
I could check. I don't think we'd have anything new on oil yet.
Right.
We haven't gotten to consumption at this point, but we might soon start taking delivery if we haven't already. I could check with staff on that and see if we can get any updates before next meeting.
Sounds good. And I hear prices are going to be astronomical. So I don't know how you guys, if you have the locked in contracts, but.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So Chris, Amy Thompson was going to help us prepare that report like she did for Glastonbury, and she said she needed 2 years worth of data. So at some point we get enough data. She doesn't have to wait until next year to do that report for us, does she?
No, I don't believe so. I'm just in. Once I get the bus depot, I think I will have had all of the properties needed to be updated. And I can tell you that with the exception of those three, I've updated everything that I have. And I think that went back to, Dan, I think we even have it all the way back to 19 for some of them. So I think we should be good. Yeah.
So then will you take it, find yourself to contact Amy, let her know what's going on. She probably, I don't know, you don't have to really, she can get into our database if she.
Yeah, she has access.
Yeah, so I say go into our database, see what's there that, and is there enough there to produce that report? It would be interesting to get that report, even if we're getting it in a month or two and early, I don't know what the next deadline is.
I mean, next deadline is, I think, next August. So we can, we can probably, I mean, hell, I could have her I could ask if she wants to take a look at it and give me some advanced feedback.
Yeah, okay.
So let me get it uploaded. I'll just fire off an email and schedule a quick call with her at some point in the next couple of weeks, and we'll go from there.
Good. All right, you're up again. Did you do anything on the outreach advertisement?
No, and I apologize. I thought when we were talking about that, I thought I was doing something for the fall festival promotion, not something more general. So that was a misunderstanding on my part, which I didn't recognize until we reviewed the minutes. So I do not have an update on that item.
Okay, well, this outreach activity is something that, this sustainability fair might help. That's partly outreach. If somebody does show up there and starts talking about what we do, there is an energy commission, and what do we do, and how many people are on it, and that sort of thing, just to kind of educate, because I think that was really one of your concerns several months ago, is does anybody even know that there is an energy commission? And if so, what do we do?
Right.
How can we communicate that to them? So that's what we felt was important. Okay. I don't think there's anything more to add under clean energy, right? I mean,
I don't
have
have
anything to add
anything.
under the virtual net metering project. Do we, Dan Bombaro? Do you have anything to add for the virtual? No. No, it looks like you're the man of the hour, Chris. What about this spreadsheet of important dates?
I got one date. Folks, next August. Is there anything else that I would call it a spreadsheet, but I could just type it in the chat. So
Well, that's okay. I mean, we don't, it's there to be used, but if there's nothing to populate it with, then that's the way it is. But the one, there is the other item that we've been talking about, but not really too specifically, is the what we just talked about just now, the
Yeah, that's what I. that's what I
virtual,
meant to-
virtual net metering.
Oh, okay, so that one, yeah. so
Dan
maybe-
Bombaro, you know when the next round is, right? For the virtual net metering?
Chris, I'll get you dates when deadlines are on that.
Okay. Hey, after that, we'll have a spreadsheet with 2 items in it. And I'll make a little Gantt chart. It'll be fun.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, Dan Bombaro, is there anything going on with tree trimming in town? Tree trimming in town?
Yep, right now Eversource is in town. They're working on the corridor in West Main Street from about Peck Lane to the linear trail. They're doing some tree removal and trimming in that area.
Okay, are you able to tell us what the effectiveness of this effort is? I mean, are we getting fewer outages, fewer complaints?
The intent by the trimming is always to reduce outages. That area was specifically identified as being problematic in some of the past storms, and they wanted to jump in there and take care of some.
But is there any way of knowing whether what they're doing has been effective?
We could certainly see if they can provide us some feedback data on historic outages and prior to the efforts.
Yeah, I think.
They've been ongoing for as long as I've been in town.
Yeah,
They've been in town working more effectively on trimming and maintenance.
is this being done, it's being done for Eversource by Asplund, right?
Correct. Eversource has arborists that look around at these areas, identify trees, and then schedule with Asplund, their contractor for the maintenance work.
Do you know who our account executive is for electricity, Eversource Electricity?
Offhand, I know they had a change. I can't think of the new gentleman's name, but it was Lynn Vasquez. She's since retired.
Okay, I know. Lynn.
I can't. I've met him before. I can't recall his name off the top of my head.
Okay, if you could either give me his name and I'll send him a note, or you can send him a note and say, Energy Commission is interested in knowing what the effect of tree trimming in town is. Is there any way of knowing whether we're getting fewer outages or fewer complaints or?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I have a feeling Ryan O'Grady probably would know right off the top of his
Oh, there
head.
you go too, Ryan. They copy Ryan on it. If you do send him a note, copy Ryan.
Yeah, maybe not. That might be
Yeah.
mixing appointed business and paid job stuff.
Maybe that's true. Okay.
I'm just
All
here to
right.
keep everybody in
Um,
line. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, the last item on the agenda, which we really aren't going to say too much about, is the school modernization. Only to say that we were all cautioned to refrain from advocating one way or another on the school modernization project. So, go.
If I could just speak to that for a second, I think, I didn't weigh in on the email. I think that there is merit to that, where this commission didn't take a vote to endorse. Again, like I always say, we're advisory in nature. There's no real executive function power vested in us. That being said, we as an energy commission are made up of citizens in this town who have opinions and ideas, and I think we can speak about what we think is the right thing to do when it comes to energy. And so if we believe that the school modernization effort is lacking in some way, or we want to comment on something under the purview of what our goal is, I think we can do that. I think maybe what they're cautioning is against the Energy Commission engaging in political activity in support or opposition of a referendum item. But I think that doesn't foreclose on our ability to talk about the merits of the project when it comes to energy utilization. I think that's kind of our whole objective.
Yeah, and I think you might be mostly right, but I don't know for sure what Tim Slocum's concerns are, except that it sounded to me like there was something in the state reimbursement rules that the city, the town can't take sides. And I don't know why. You can't take sides for or against the projects, but you may be right that we can still talk about energy efficiency and resiliency and cost savings and whatever.
Yeah, I think there's probably a difference. Like I think that was in the context of us potentially going to the fall festival. If we had something that said, you know, Energy Commission urges you to vote yes, that's
Yeah, right.
probably a
Right,
problem.
right.
But if we were
Yeah, and-
providing information, I think that would have been,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, well, maybe Tucker, I don't know how you want, if you want to say anything about it, but again, we're not going to advocate for or against the projects, but I think Chris is right. And Ian, I don't know if you're on board with this or not, but we are talking about energy efficiency and we are talking about cost savings and resiliency and efficiency, demand management, that sort of thing. I think that is within our purview and
Right.
bylaws, actually, to talk
The
about
problem
that.
is those rules that laid down by the state. You hate to interfere with it, you know? I mean, if you overstep your bounds and all of a sudden we
Right.
become an issue, boy, there's really no point. There's really no point at all, because we really don't know what the energy values are here in the new modernization
We
building.
don't, and see, my last conversation with Tim Slocum, in that last conversation, he said, after the referendum is held, if the what do you call the projects, the modernization proposals pass,
Right.
then they want us to comment on the energy efficiency and sources of energy for the schools. And he said, and I think you probably read last week's Cheshire Herald, they're looking for volunteers to form a building committee specifically for these two schools.
Mhm.
So if you're interested in being on the building committee, submit your resume to, I don't know, does anybody remember where it goes? Dan Bombaro, do you know? The people who are interested, I think they wanted to have what, seven member, I don't know the exact number, but they're looking for specific people, somebody with construction experience.
Mm.
They're looking for a couple of people with experience in education. So whatever, they're looking for input from various, maybe existing town commissions and agencies, safety, whatever, environment, energy. They want to get as much input as possible from commissions like ours. But specifically, if you have any ideas on how the buildings ought to be designed, join the building commission, not the building commission, the committee, the building committee. Weren't you on one of those committees, Tucker?
Excuse me?
Were you on one of these building commission? Were you on the?
I wasn't in the past, but I've been a contractor for the last 30 or 40 years. So, I have some experience in the field, yes.
Okay, so refer back to the Cheshire Herald from last week, or maybe the week before. There is an article in there about the school modernization and a building committee that they'd like to form. I think the deadline for submitting your interest or your paperwork is early October.
Yeah.
And again, if the project passes, then they're going to, this building, it's a 4-year term. The building committee members will have a 4-year term, which is about the length of the project that they anticipate
Yeah, it's
to get the two schools built.
Yeah.
And so we go. That's all I have for tonight. Does anybody have anything else they want to add?
bring up some other issues, if you'd like to talk about
All right.
some issues about energy. So I did have a booth at the Fall Festival, and a number of people showed up. It was most part, I think, beneficial. We all learned something. I don't know how you folks, I'm trying to fit in here as far as your basis on energy and how you think about it. And Richard, stop me. I'm going to bore you. But if we think about the root causes of what's propelling us into this transition toward net zero from fossil fuels, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the, let's say, the basis. What's the atmospheric content, do you think, of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere? Anyone have an opinion on the atmospheric content? I don't know if you can see this, but this is from NASA. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. This is the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And it shows you that the vast majority of what's in our atmosphere is nitrogen. That's that purple.
Yep.
And the purple, not the purple, but the red, the scarlet, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
The purple is oxygen. And a little slice there, you might see, is carbon dioxide. It's 0.04% of our atmosphere. So, you know, it begs questions that I have asked myself and others. Why the preponderance of effort to demonize carbon dioxide?
Well, I don't have a scientific answer for you, but I mean, I can tell you what I read, and Dan Knudsen can tell you what his thinking is, but evidently there are certain components of the atmosphere that block out sunlight or whatever and create warming and climate
Sure.
change, whatever. Now, besides the CO2 though, and you said in the preponderance of that pie chart is nitrogen.
Yes.
And nitrogen is also regulated. NOx emissions are also regulated.
Right.
So
It's not a greenhouse gas. I mean, it's so I was just wondering what your thoughts were on why, anyone who wants to chime in here, why the effort to control the amount of CO2 we're putting in the atmosphere? Why?
Well, I'll jump in. You know, I'm not a physician, and so I can't tell you why I take vitamins. I know that I rely on the advice of experts who have spent their time studying that stuff. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not a climate scientist. But the preponderance of the experts, not just in this country but around the globe, have indicated that it's a major problem that we need to focus on. So whether or not we adhere to, or whether or not we agree that that's the case, that carbon dioxide is creating, has been accelerated by human activity and creating a runaway greenhouse effect, I can't explain to you why that is the case, you know, from a scientific basis. What I can tell you is that a lot of folks who have spent their lives focused on this articulate that. Even if we were to discount that, I do think that there are benefits, both monetary and health, to focus on getting rid of our reliance on fossil fuels, which is not infinitely abundant, like sunlight is, like wind can help supplement. You know, we're not pulling things out of the ground, we're not fracking, we're not drilling as much, and carbon dioxide, I think the physicians I mentioned before will probably tell you that those emissions do create some health ramifications. If you ask me why and how to explain that, I can't do it. I'm relying on experts.
Mhm.
And so even if my opinion is that even if you discount the idea behind climate change and the effect that carbon has on it, there are certainly other benefits to it, including health and economic benefits. And quite frankly, I don't think there's a whole lot lot to lose by going to a net zero carbon. Is it changing some industries? Sure. We don't have a typewriter industry anymore either, because we've advanced to computers and other things. So, I think change is difficult, but I think this one, I think we're relying on 99.9% of the folks who say it's a problem. And I think that we're doing the right thing by taking that information and utilizing it in a way that I think is beneficial to the future, not just from a climate perspective, which I believe is an existential threat. I also think it's a benefit to health, asthma in urban communities that bear the brunt of carbon dioxide emissions. I mean, you look at every interstate, 91 and 95 connect in a major urban center. 95 goes through 3 major urban centers in Connecticut. 91 goes through 2. Those communities are disproportionately impacted, and that's something to factor in as well. So from where I sit and how I view my role as an energy commissioner here is not to engage in the science of that. I think our role as an energy commission is to advise this town municipal government on energy matters, not just on carbon, but on anything related to energy. When we flip the light switch, we want the lights to go on. When we turn the thermostat up, we want the heat to come on. And I think our role is to advocate not just with those factors in mind, but also how it's impacting our taxpayers, how it's impacting our residents, and other things. I think if we start wading into questioning what the vast preponderance of experts say is a problem, I think we are, with all due respect, I think that we're inviting attention that we probably don't need, and I quite frankly don't think it would be a terribly good look for this commission. But I say that respectfully. I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I certainly would take serious issue if we were to wade into those waters in any real meaningful way.
I see. Well, that just to continue, carbon dioxide is plant food. I mean, if the plants are endangered at all by a threshold that might cause harm to them, then we would be concerned about that, right?
I think we would, and I think we probably would have been concerned about that for everything 10,000 years ago and hundreds of million years before that. Plants seem to do just fine.
Right, and if you looked at a chart, which I don't have, a graph of 140 million years ago, we had a parts per million of carbon dioxide of 2,500. And since that time, 140 million years ago, it's been on a steady decline. And now we are, in 1880, we got to 220 parts per million. Right now we're about 440 or so. So we've doubled it. Human activity, by releasing fossil fuels into the air, I mean carbon dioxide, has increased, doubled since 1880, the carbon dioxide, and also created a great deal more plant food, because plants die at 180 parts per million. Humans, we depend on oxygen, of course. The 21% oxygen in the atmosphere is quite healthy and helpful to us. But if it dropped down to 16.9, we'd die. Plants die at 180 parts per million. And we're kind of on the low scale right now with the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. Now, this is my opinion. I mean, I have done research on this for 20 years. I'm very interested in the climate and energy. So maybe we want to move off that subject and think about that. But I have another thing here I'd like to bring up if I have any more time.
Sure, yeah.
And that's how many coal-fired power plants do you think there are in the world today? Well, it turns out that the EU has 468, and they're going to build 27 more. Turkey has 56. They're going to build 93 more. South Africa has 79. They're going to build 24 more. India has 589. They're going to build 446 more. The Philippines has 19, they're going to build 60 more. South Korea has 58, they're going to build 26 more. Japan has 90, they're going to build 45 more. China has 2,363 coal plants. They're going to build 1,171 more. That's 5,615 projected coal-powered plants in just 8 countries. Now, if you're worried about CO2 being injected into the air, how much of a handle do you think America has on convincing all those countries to move off of coal or move off of fossil fuels when they want what we have, which is a standard of living, the likes that of everyone that appreciates, just as a realistic view of what we're facing to get to net zero? How do we get there?
So let me listen. When I listen to a lot of the statistics that you just described,
Yes.
it seems, well, it's not, it indicates that these countries that you're talking about are going to build 50% more capacity.
At least. Yeah.
50% more capacity. Now, why are they doing that? Why do they need 50% more capacity?
Cheapest way of delivering energy to their population.
So you think they're going to retire existing non-coal plants, or you say
No,
they
no.
have coal plants? Take the example of a country that has 1,000 coal plants and they're going to build 500 more. So they're going to increase their coal plant capacity by 50%. And that pretty much went through the entire list that you read up. Why are these countries increasing their production capacity by 50%?
Well, because it's cheapest. Because
No, there must be some demand for it. There's got to be demand for the energy, right?
of course, their population wants all the things that America has. Let's put it that way. I mean, we're talking many of the third world countries or BRICS countries don't have the advantages that America has. We have 15, by the way, 15 coal plants, and we don't project any new coal plants. So just to put it in perspective, we don't have a handle on how to create an understanding, let's say, with all those other countries that they shouldn't do that. How are you going to convince them that you shouldn't build coal plants?
It's pretty hard after you've, over the past 50 years, created about half the CO2 that's been created, the man-made CO2. We've done it in this country.
We're definitely energy consumers, no doubt about it.
Yeah, we have caused climate change.
Oh, let's face it. When and before fossil fuels, there were about a billion people on Earth. After fossil fuels, we got 8 billion. Fossil fuels was the key to turn on.
There have been a lot of reasons for population increases. Fertilizer was one.
The use of fossil fuels for fertilizer is certainly well known. I mean, that's probably
happened later too. Yeah.
Sure.
So Tucker, can I just ask? I'm trying to get to the heart of how does this impact the advisory role that the Cheshire Energy Commission has to the town of Cheshire and to the residents that are our neighbors and constituents? I guess I'm just trying to make that connection.
We are advocating a net zero program. We advocate net zero. So my question is, how realistically, when you advocate such a thing like that, are you going to achieve it? Faced with the information I just gave you, simply that, I have many others that are great stumbling blocks to net zero. But
I see what you're, so you're talking, it's a scale issue. So stop me if I'm wrong. So what you're saying is we the town of Cheshire don't have the ability to impact the global supply and demand for energy sourcing. So why are we focused on net zero at all? And just
well, right. Well, obviously, net zero is a transitioning source of energy between solar and geothermal, you mentioned, and wind. Now, we've found in our experience in the last 20 years, 2 decades, we spent $5 trillion to enhance the renewables, we call them. And we've got 2 or 3% of an energy increase from them. So I'm
We
just trying
spend
to-
more than that on oil, on fossil fuel.
we spend a great deal on fossil fuels. Yes. And what kind of bang to buck? Well, 84% of our energy comes from fossil fuels. 97% of the transportation use of fuel is fossil fuels. So it's a big nut. This is a large category of our existence here. So I'm
Well-
just. Go ahead.
So isn't the question then, so again, I guess what I'm getting to is, so you're saying because we're advocating for net zero for this, and when I say we, I shouldn't say we, I think that this has been a topic of conversation. I think that the commission has supported those initiatives, not because of any one sole reason, but because I think there's a number of reasons. One of them that I mentioned was, some of the experts who know this stuff better than we do talking about it. I think there's also, economic reasons that we had looked into it. I mean, Ryan and I had talked in the past about, our own residential homes. We're transitioning to a net zero home. It's saved me quite a bit of money, and we're trying to figure out maybe there's a way to replicate that with the town of Cheshire to save not just me money and the things that I've invested on my property, but going green, so to speak, on some of our town accommodations and facilities and stuff like that. And if it can save money,
Save money. That's
if
a
as
good one.
one reason, yeah.
Now, is the save money part because a lot of the cost of the installation of these green energies have been subsidized?
A lot of the costs of the fossil fuels have been subsidized. Actually, they get much larger subsidies in the green industries. What,
Well, okay, we're gonna loggerheads with that one, but I just want to make sure that we're headed in the right direction and we've got our thoughts well established here on what we believe are the basis of why we are moving into this transitional phase out of fossil fuels with, I would say, well, let's take a look at Germany for a minute. Germany certainly embraced the use of renewables. They closed down their nuclear power plants. They shut down their coal plants. They moved with gusto into solar and wind. They don't seem to be able to survive very well without fossil fuels. And right now they are depending, of course, on Russia for all of their needs, most of their needs in the oil and gas area. And they're facing some pretty difficult times. You've been reading this in the paper, right? Anyone? You've read of the difficulties Germany's having?
I have not.
You've not. That's interesting because Germany has made certain moves here in the last few years that have shaped their new reality. And I would suggest somehow I don't know how to source the information that you have not been apprised of, but.
Well, I'm happy to read whatever you want to send, and I certainly will do it, as I think.
I think it's important. If you have that information, Tucker, and would like to share it with the rest of us, I for one would give it a real critical review.
Great. I will do that, and
Yeah.
and I appreciate you looking through it and saying this is bullshit, or, excuse me, this is bull or this is not bull. I mean, these come from reputable sources of news. I mean, but I'll send them along.
Yeah, I think we would all
I send them to
appreciate
you?
that.
Do I send them just to you, Richard? Or do I
No, well, do you have everybody's email address? Because if you don't, you can send them to Ann and she could forward.
Okay,
Ann McBain's address is on the, well, she sends out the invitation to this meeting, so you can get it right off of that.
Yeah, I certainly would look forward to reading whatever it is you have to share, and I certainly welcome dialogue and disagreement. I think talking through those things is kind of what makes this whole the wheels of
Yeah.
this whole thing work. What I do want to know though is if you're taking issue with net zero and you think we should be going in a different direction, that's a conversation that this commission should have, and I look forward to having that conversation. And if that's the case, I think we need to look at it from a number of different angles, not the least of which is you mentioned subsidies. Yeah, there are renewables that are subsidized, just like a lot of different things and industries are subsidized. And if we, as the town of Cheshire, are taking advantage of that, I think while that may be true, there still is likely, and I think it's borne out in what we've reviewed, cost savings to our ratepayers. Whether or not that's subsidized or not, we'd be leaving opportunities on the table. And so even if I were to ignore my other beliefs about human accelerated climate change and the negative effects that has and the negative effects that carbon has, I can still, I think, support where my opinion lies in net zero. And I think, but let's have that conversation. What I don't want to lose sight of is what our role is as a Cheshire Energy Commission. I don't think this is the forum for settling debates on global climate change and what others are doing. Is that a factor? Sure, I think so. But I just don't want to overstep our scope. That would be my preference.
All right, fine. I'm just trying to feel my way into this organization.
I think it's been very helpful to hear your side of the story. I think when you and I met for lunch, I might have expressed some of my concerns and thoughts with you, Tucker. I guess I would need to know I'd like to have some way of validating the sources that you have a multitude of. And as I would like to validate Chris's sources and Dan's as well. I mean, but again,
I mean, if we did climate changes caused by man? I mean, that's
not, but see, I don't 100%. I think that yes, there's probably some impact of humans on the environment. There's probably, and there most definitely is, but is that the leading cause for the rises and falls of temperatures and changes in climate? I don't know for sure. I just don't know. I know that climate
but
changed a long
who
time
does
before
study
humans came along.
this? It's climatologists, correct?
Was that?
In the vast majority of climatologists, this is what they believe. This is what they're saying. So
I'm not going to argue that because I don't know. I'm not an expert in climatology. And all I would say is I would like to read and understand and debate the sources and have a better understanding. But you can't give us all the resources that are pro, and I can't give you all the resources that are negative. There's got to be some kind of healthy back and forth. And I think that what Chris is saying is there's more than one. There's probably more than one reason for climate change, and there's probably more than one reason for net zero, and there's more than one reason for CO2 going up or down.
Complicated.
And so collectively, we got to put it all together. Now, Chris is.
isn't that the
right
job
on.
of the climatologist?
It's not our job to figure it all out. All we got to do is try to figure out how we can be of service to the town of Cheshire.
Right. And we
Yeah.
want to base that direction, whatever direction we decide to go in, on real facts and real.
Yeah, but today, Tucker, I have trouble finding the real facts. I have trouble finding facts. I can't pick up any newspaper and believe it anymore. Unfortunately, that's me. I don't know about you or anybody else on the commission. But facts are hard to understand for me.
Skepticism is the essence of science. You always check, you always review.
Yeah, double blind this and double blind that. But here, now, Chris, I want to just maybe wrap this up by going maybe back to something you said earlier. There's more than one reason that, I mean, there's likely, in my mind anyway, more than one reason to do anything that we do. And in the case of net zero, I think economics is an important reason for doing it. I think resiliency and sustainability. I mean, oil is not sustainable. Natural gas, to a lesser degree, is, but but sunlight is pretty damn sustainable. I mean, it doesn't go away. It's always there, except for at night. But then, if you have battery backup, battery storage, you can figure out how to cost effectively make a storage system for the energy that's produced by the sun or the wind. Then you're home free. But depending on Russia or the Middle East for oil, or even our own reserves and fracking and all that, someday that goes away. Not in our lifetime, probably not. But I think that's one of the reasons why people are looking at sustainability and resiliency. And Chris, I don't know if you want to wrap it up with that, but what I'm trying to say is there's more to it than just looking at declining CO2 graphs.
I don't have anything to add. I think you wrapped it up well.
Yeah. So Tucker, please send out those resources, because I really would. I know that Chris and some of the other guys, Dan for sure, would love to read more about what you're. Well, you ought to be open, Dan Knutson.
Yeah, I
Please
don't
be
know.
open-minded and read it. Gotta open up. Yeah, I know. I know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I have read about Germany. I
Oh.
do know about their energy. So,
Well, what do you think?
we're ending the
Yeah,
meeting.
this should be.
I'll make a motion to end the meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Tucker, appreciate you bringing that up. And just so that you know, Tucker, the meetings that you missed because you're on your